reasons why we at Tyburn Convent treasure the Esther Megillah. And that is, as Mordechai has said, on account of the hanging tree. And when I read his book, I was very touched about something he put in it, because it showed that he really went and read his sources and took them to heart. And we've done something in this room, or the script here today, because of what he wrote in his book. He described some of the martyrs coming to Tyburn under Queen Elizabeth, I think, and along the way, from Holborn and along and around the Tyburn tree, the Catholics decorated it and put herbs and flowers and strewn it all around the place so that the tree wouldn't look so awful, just as a gallows. So we decided that today, for this meeting, we would do what the Catholics in those days did for their fellows who were laying down their life. And it's a very lovely thing to do. And it helps you to see life and hope, which goes beyond this world. And it is, in fact, one of our English poets, the one that's very flamboyant, he was fades my mind, but he calls the gate of Tyburn is the gate to life. And yes, I know you're saying it, but I can't. Blake, that's right, William Blake. And I've used his saying about Tyburn, this overarching gate here, to describe what our life is about. It's a gateway that even Satan or the devil can't get into because he's barred from it. But the other people can get through to heaven from it. And it's still like that today. But the hanging tree was not just a symbol of a persecution and death, that's what I'm saying. It's a symbol, and the Christians and the Catholics made it so, a symbol of a gateway to life everlasting in heaven, the kingdom of heaven. And when you listen to the prayers of the people, when they were on that scaffold and dying, they used prayers that actually were very similar in some ways to what that apocryphal prayer of Esther is about, that you're really asking God for mercy and to heal and to separate the good from the bad properly. Do you understand? The other thing about the Tyburn gallows that Mordechai very touchingly put in, and you might hear that when our friend Ian talks about what he has to say, very simply and plainly, that there's a lot, has been down through the centuries, a lot of contention about, well, who is Jesus? And I've got a book upstairs now which calls it Jesus, the Jewish Rabbi, and all sorts of things. People keep wrangling around this. Well, Mordechai didn't have any bones about writing about the last man to be hanged at Tyburn gallows tree here. He wasn't a saint. He wasn't a particularly good man. He was a highwayman. And the last one, as he tells us, and he studied it to put it down like that in his book, for any Jew to read it, was in 1783. His name was John Austin, and he was a terribly violent and wicked highwayman. And so he deserved, according to the law of the country, to be hanged, drawn and quartered at Tyburn. But he was the last one, 1785. And what does Mordechai do? He just doesn't leave it at that. He tells us that this is probably the time that this Megillah was being written in Italy, but he also gives the words, the last words of that wicked man. And the last words are, Jesus, have mercy on my soul. Christ, forgive me all my sins, similar to that. So he had no problem of just putting, this is what a Catholic would say when he died. Do you understand? And he made no ripple about it and no excuse for it or no contention about it. So I thank you for that. The other thing is that we are nearing Purim next week, and one of the first sayings that I learned from Esther, about Esther during my childhood, was, before Purim, or there is no Purim without the fast of Esther. So that's the two sides of the thing. You can't have the feast without the fast, or it's not a feast. You've got to have something to feast about, and it's the fast in the Book of Esther that pinned down God's miraculous intervention and drew it down. So those two sides of human life, They're not particular to the Jews, they're not particular to Christians, they actually are particular to the whole of humanity. We all have a conscience. If we've done something wrong, we have to make amends, or we can try to help others to make amends before we can be at peace with one another or with ourselves. And the peace begins in our own hearts to go out to others. All right. And one of the things that I was reading in preparation for this was, everybody goes around saying, well, Purim means casting lots, the lot, you see, and they cast lots for this and they cast lots for that. But one of the things I read was Esther cast her lot for God. And that's what we all have to do, basically. The other thing is that, as he's already mentioned, the Catholic liturgy has quite a lot about Esther in it. But the thing that amazes me in it is not only that we have the Lenten one next week, as just about as we're going to celebrate Purim in the religion of the Jews, but in actual fact, we have a whole week of reading Esther's the entire book in the autumn every year. But beside that, this is in the Liturgy of the Hours or the Divine Office, we always take a second reading from a Christian author which illustrates or interprets the first reading from Scripture. And in that one that we read in autumn time, we have 10 readings that we can take as a second reading after it. And they all turn to Mary, the mother of Jesus. And Jesus was, we say, the Saviour, but Esther is called the Redeemer of her people. And therefore, the mother of Jesus is given a special relationship to the symbolism or the meaning of the mission of Esther. And they are taken, these readings are taken in our liturgy from the Byzantine hymn, one of the most famous hymns about Mary. It's called the Agathist hymn. And we read those side by side with Esther, and we look at these two persons, and we say, yes, God's speaking to us through them, and he's giving us a message of salvation in a beautiful language. The other time when we read Esther is whenever there's a terrible catastrophe in our liturgy, or terrible disasters on a political or a social or a national level, when there's no hope for a cure. So Esther has remained very powerful in Catholic and Christian religion, devotion, and spirituality as a symbol, an image, and a model of powerful intercession with God to change the course of human events from bad to good. And I think that anybody of the Jewish race should be very proud of that, because Esther doesn't die. In fact, in one of the expressions that's used in the Purim liturgy, it says that from her there comes the text of Esther, the Book of Esther, the wonderful wisdom. You'll hear it in the prayer that I will put here later. It's an unending flow of that wisdom of coming from God for healing and redemption. So her life and her model remains as long as humanity remains, if we take the care to go back to Scripture. But in our Catholic liturgy, we have opportunities to do that regularly. And so we can never forget her. So I don't know if Sister Esther is here. Would she like to come and say what Esther means to her?